Okay, I'm going to do an update on my after stage 2. I've got a little over 1,000 miles, most of that freeway driving. I'll tell you about a couple of problems that popped up. The very first thing that I want to mention is you'll see down here a power steering leak. It's just from the bottom clamp going into the pump. Things that don't work very well that I'm going to talk about is the full top is not really great for speed driving. Everything comes unvelcroed, and the little side clamps, the little lip that holds it in pops out all the time. Of course, it's noisy, but I knew it would be that. But it's not really stands up very well to the speed. And then I would suggest people buy the turn signals and the horn kits aftermarket rather than the installed from Roxor units, because it's a little difficult when you're driving on the roadway to use your hands up here on the dash rather than a standard turn signal. And you can also get an Old Willys Jeep button, then put the horn, instead of up on the dash, actually onto the steering. Other than that, I mean, it rides fine. I'll mention that about 2,500 RPMs, according to my GPS speedometer, is 70 miles an hour. So you do 70 miles an hour on the freeway at 2,500 RPM. It rides beautifully on the freeway, so there's no problems that way. As far as the stealth part of it goes, everybody that sees you, including the police, just assume you're a Jeep. I didn't have anybody even look at me twice, except for Jeep owners, of course. They look at you and they kind of wave, and they're looking at you like, what's that? But you don't have any problems. And like I said, I'm registered street and off-road use in Arizona. I have been driving for a couple of weeks here in California, and like I said, the highway patrol don't even look at you as long as you're not doing anything stupid. I know it's not legal here in California, but they don't stop you. And the only other problem that you had, and this is kind of a major one, I don't know if national or anybody locally knows of this problem, but I'll show you where this problem is. On the turbo, when you drive at a little bit of a higher speed, this part of the turbo down here underneath the sensor, you'll see the rubber area underneath down below here. This down here is just pushed on over a sleeve. There's no kind of clamp or anything down on here. And when back pressure builds up down here, it will cause enough pressure to lift this up off of this sleeve enough that you'll start blowing air out on this return from your turbo into the intake. And every time you give enough throttle, air leaks out of this bottom. You'll have to push it back down on here. And when it does, there's some sort of a safety mechanism that kicks in and kind of turns the fuel system. Well, the turbo doesn't work anymore when the safety thing kicks in. And if you try to accelerate, it actually decelerates. When it's doing that, if you're using it and driving it and you keep your foot out of it, you'll have to stop, pull over to the side, turn it off, let the system reset, and then start it again. And then you can continue driving with, you'll hear the air escape noise until you shove it back down on there later on when you stop. But it resets itself if you turn the ignition off and start it again. And unless you really give a lot of throttle, it usually you're fine. You know, I mean, if you're trying to pass and you give a lot of throttle though, then that safety will kick in when you hear that leaking, and you just shove it back down on there. But they need to from the factory solve that problem on that end of the turbo. It's not really a broken part. Like I said, there's just no clamp or anything on there. I'll mention that if you buy aftermarket mirrors, the cheap ones that are made for ATVs for off-road, you can forget, both vision-wise and speed-wise. I mean, there's an adjustment screw on the bottom of these ones that they put on me from the dealership, but you can tighten these as much as you possibly can without cracking the plastic, and it don't matter. At 70 miles an hour, they blow in. But it really doesn't matter, because even at slow speed, you'll see that these are concave. They're not really made for street use, and they're almost useless. You can't really see behind you very well, and they're no good. So you make sure you buy some that are stiff and have a regular vision mirror down here, or else you can't see anyway. So the interior ones are fine, but the exterior ones are garbage. So make sure you get some high quality mirrors. Like I said, as far as driving on the street and on the freeways, everybody just assumes you're driving like an old CJ or something, and you don't have any problems. So those two little minor problems have popped up at around 1,000 miles. Not a real big deal now that I know exactly what's going on with the turbo. Later on, I will probably maybe put a clamp on there myself somehow, or some other way to make sure that rubber spacer there doesn't unseat itself anymore. But other than that, that's about all that's going on. Like I said, 2,500 RPMs. You're doing 70 miles an hour on the freeway. That's not the top. I don't know how fast it will actually go. I just know that I can do at least 75 miles an hour. That's as high as I've taken it. I would suggest maybe it would be a little bit easier on that turbo with the high flow exhaust. I haven't put that on yet. I'm going to put that on, and hopefully then I won't have any. Maybe there's back pressure issue since I bumped it up, and my stage 2 bumped it up to 115 horsepower. So that's that one. I'll let you guys know. One of the things I'm going to do to run this a little bit more, or a little bit more camouflage as far as stealth, is I'm gonna probably switch over to the aftermarket grill that looks a little bit more like a Willys grill, and the turn signals that come from Mahindra, these little tiny lights. You know, you get the aftermarket grill that has the big turn signal lights, which look a little bit more street. And then I'm also going to put spacers to widen the stance down here. You can get them all the way up to 2.5 inches. I think I'll probably go with the 1.5-inchers, and then you can get the black plastic fender extensions on the side. You can order that from a couple of places, but even like Street Legal has them for the Roxor. But it's what it is the older CJ fender extensions. My brother has a brand new JK Jeep 2018, and we're the same length within a 1/2 inch wheelbase front to back, but he's about 9 inches wider on the stance. So I think if you do that, get the spacers on there, and then later maybe put a lift kit and some bigger tires and wheels on there, then it'll look a lot or almost completely like a regular Jeep product, and then I don't think you're going to have people bothering you on the road. Of course, that's only helps if you don't do anything wrong. I mean, if you disobey the law and you get stopped by the cops and they figure out that you're driving an ATV rather than a regular Jeep, you're going to have a problem with a ticket, or if you get into a traffic accident, I'm sure. So when you do drive stealthily on the street, be very cautious is the only thing I could say. Later on the rocks, sells also aluminum top. I think I'll probably replace the canvas here with the aluminum top. I've got the windshield wiper kit coming. Maybe the aftermarket windshields are better than the actual Mahindra Roxor windshield, because at speed, when it's raining that's not sealed along the bottom here. There's no weather stripping or anything. So the water and the wind goes up under the bottom of this and then comes up and spritzes on the inside of your vehicle up here behind the dash. So water and air splashes up out of here the entire time you're driving if it's raining. And that's going to happen even with the windshield wipers on there. So I would recommend that you get, and I will, some weather stripping, and take this windshield loose and run it along this edge down here, and then that will probably prevent it from coming in. Also in the center, there's a little bit of give. As you can see, you can move this, and when you're driving at freeway speeds, you get quite a bit of movement down here in the center. So maybe a little support bracket. You can get a little elbow from the hardware store, maybe drill it in here on the top of the dash and up against the windshield, maybe with a rubber backing. You can also get that at the hardware store, just to keep this from pushing in and out and vibrating so badly when you're driving 70, 75 miles an hour. Only just because it's kind of spooky to you. You're kind of wondering if this weather stripping is going to give out and you're going to end up with the windshield in your face because of the back and forth movement here. It's been fine. The only thing, like I said, is that this full cover that they sell for the Roxor is not really designed for speed. So look, you see here how there's a lip on the bottom of these, and they put a railing along here that it clips into, but all it does is just basically slide up under it. And because of the speed and the vibration at the higher speeds, it pops out. And so then you got a lot of flapping going on. And with all that flapping, it just makes it noisier. And of course leaky. But it's going to leak with the wind anyway, but I'm just saying. And a lot of the Velcro, it's pretty much all held together with Velcro. So with the speed of going and the wind and the flapping and the breeze and all that stuff, makes everything come unvelcroed. You have to stop after every time you drive it on the roadway and tighten up your Velcro and put these little, see, look, they won't even stay in now anymore, pretty much. There's like I said, see, there's a lip on them and it slides up under the frame there, but they won't stay. So maybe an aftermarket top. I understand there's one that you can buy that replaces basically this center part right up here, and the back part, it comes out further like this and then down at an angle, and then that way you can put the back seat in here so you can carry passengers in the back. And I understand there's also some nicer seats aftermarket you can get. There's nothing really wrong with these comfort wise, except for that there's no back adjustment at all, like to tilt it back a little bit. And for long trips, it's a little bit forward. So it wears on you a little bit on the back. You're kind of leaned forward a little bit. So for driving hours long on the freeway, that gets to you after a while. But, you can buy aftermarket seats, like I said. You can also buy a higher rise soft top, which I'll probably do later on when I want to put a back seat in. And then I'll put the spacers on here to widen the stance, and then those black fender extensions. And then later on, when the tires need replaced, then I'll probably get a lift kit, for like a 2-inch lift kit. So they're pretty easy and reasonably priced. And then jump the tires and rims up a size. And just make it look a little bit more aesthetically like a modern Jeep, rather than the kind of small-sized tires and rims that are on them. But anyway, that's my update. I'll give you more information as I compile it.